This episode is sponsored by Jupe NYC, a women's clothing boutique where modesty meets chic, modern style. Jupe NYC believes you never have to compromise your values for fashion, and they welcome every woman wherever you are on your modesty journey. Visit their newest location, the Vault Society in Miami, a vibrant hub for creativity and community, where 10% of proceeds support Bone Olam, Florida. You can find Jupe NYC in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, and at the American Dream Mall in New Jersey, and of course, at the Vault Society in Miami. If you're craving connection, creativity, and incredible style, Jupe NYC is your destination. Visit jupenyc.com for more information and follow them on Instagram at Jupe NYC. Hi, I'm Aura, and you're listening to Divine Wealth Series on my podcast. If this podcast has inspired you, please subscribe, leave a review, share it with someone who you think might need it. It really helps people find this work. You can also sponsor, co-sponsor, or contribute to any episode in honor or in memory of somebody or to support your business. You can check out the show notes for all the info or reach out to me directly. I am so glad you're here. Let's get into today's episode. Hi, welcome, Miss Cathy Heller.
You're so sweet. I'm so excited to be with you anytime. And I just want your listeners to know that once upon a time, I had just my second baby and you came over my house and said, give me the baby. I want you to rest. I'm going to hold the baby. And I just burst into tears. And I'm like, oh my God, I'll never forget that as long as I live.
That's right. So that is to say that Cathy and I know each other for a very long time. We used to be neighbors in Los Angeles, and it's really fun to have this conversation because I feel like I've seen Cathy grow, but from the outside. Like, we lived in these little duplexes. She was doing songwriting when we met, already seeing successes beyond what I've seen around. And she is, as it's going to be in the show notes, a world-renowned podcaster, speaker, best-selling author, all the things, and coach. And she has helped so many people in all these fields. And I thought maybe you can help us and the listeners, because I think I've interviewed a bunch of people at this point, mostly rabbis and rebbitzins. You're the first manifestation guru, I would say.
Oh my God, that's such a compliment. Really, that's like very significant and beautiful. Thank you. Very humbling.
Of course. And I'm so excited that it's you because there's so much successes around you. And I think my quest really from this Jewish and Judaism standpoint, and Cathy has also been learning for years with a rabbi named Rabbi David Aaron, who's wonderful. And I believe, and you can share a lot of the influence of what you teach comes from Torah, Kabbalah, Judaism. And I'm trying to help people understand, like, where is this meeting place of fun, godliness, and manifestation, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do we get to the place? And for the people who can't seem to get there, what are they missing? So if we can back up a little bit, if you could just share a little bit of your story to get us started, and then we can get deeper, that'd be amazing.
First of all, I can't wait to dive into that question because it's the only time I've been asked that question. And it's such an incredibly powerful question, especially for those they're so aligned with the desire to do right by their soul and by God. And then there's this question of, is there anything there for me on the buffet when it comes to the world of manifesting, or is that something that's usser, or is that something that's prohibited, or is that something that I should understand is like shecher and like false? And how do we put those two things together? So I can't wait. No one's ever asked me that question, although I've asked myself that question for 25 years. I feel like I have what to say on it. I can't wait to dive in. To give you the background for those who don't know, first of all, I think for anyone who's listening, it's one thing for people to meet you as you go through your journey, and it's another thing when somebody has met you as you walked home to yourself. And it's an incredibly generous and loving thing when people are willing to honor the person you keep evolving into, even though they've known you as you continue to shed the klipot, or you've shed whatever versions of you were not quite you. And I feel so loved. And I've always felt so loved and celebrated and accepted by you and your husband. And I adore you both. And I've also watched you grow. And I remember being among many people who said to you when you would like take that awesome avocado cream that I still use to this day, the one I use, because, or just get this for $8 at Whole Foods. And she's doing my makeup, and I said, "You don't do makeup. You are a mirror. You are a mirror. People in their most pristine way, which is why you love beauty, but it's the beauty of a person." And I told you that so many times, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, you're right. Like, I want to be doing something where I'm," and I said, "I know that you come from giants. Like, you have such good dolim in your life. Your mother and your father are both so incredibly special." I first met your parents way before I met you in 2001 in Meron in Israel and Spot and at Ascent. And I said to you, and you sat on the laps of giants, but you're a giant in terms of your ability to teach Torah, because I think what you and I have in common, if I could be so bold, there's many things I would say, like, you're way ahead of me. But one of the things that we both do is we take spiritual things and we make it accessible to people. And I think in some ways it's easier for people to learn from someone who's not a rabbi because they feel like they relate. They feel like the way that we can move around sentences and experiences of our own lives, it feels very much, "Believe me, I get you. Let me help you get home. I've been to your address." So like, it's
Yeah,
just a little different.
it's a little more
Even though,
accessible.
yeah. So my journey was quickly like, I grew up in a very normal and dysfunctional 1980s family. And there was no Judaism, but a lot of Jews. So there was like Mel Brooks and lox and bagels. And we had like shrimp and bacon at my bat mitzvah. And I didn't know what I was doing there other than the theme was Disney and it felt fun and awkward, and I wanted to be liked and whatever music was playing. And then my parents got divorced and I had a lot of deep questions, and so I started reading whatever books I could read from like Wayne Dyer and Tony Robbins and the Four Agreements and Stephen Covey, and it was just like good but not the best. It was like it was good though, right? And then I was like really struggling, went through a super hard time. My parents really got really dark. My mom tried to take her own life, and I was basically living alone all through high school as she was struggling with her mental health. And long story short, went to college, just really praying to be given some guidance. And sure enough, the guidance appeared. And I went to Israel and I went on Birthright, and it was just really life-giving. I was on the very first flight ever. It was for Y2K. So that
What?
was in and of itself. Yeah, it
You were
was
on the
really quite
first
amazing.
Birthright flight?
I was on the first flight and we got to the tarmac at Ben Gurion. This is before the new airport, and so there were 10 flights to inaugurate. So it was like Toronto, America, which was my flight, Brazil, France, whatever. And Ehud Barak met us and he was the prime minister at the time. And he said, "Welcome home." And then they played "We Are Family." And he was like, "Shalom, Toronto, shalom." And I'm hysterically crying. I'm like, "What is happening? I've never been here. I don't know any of these people. All a family." And I just so got that. Like, it just, I so deeply got it. I felt it. I was just like, "Oh my God, I belong to something so beautiful." And I was so lost for so long. And then I was so found. I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's so deep. Like, I'm so found and I belong to something so incredible." And so we did nothing spiritual or religious on this trip. It was like a straight up Jeep ride to the hiking in the
Country.
Golan, but I loved it. And the very last day of the trip, they allowed us to go to pick a class at the convention center in Jerusalem. There was like probably 50 classrooms made up. And I happened to walk into this class with Rabbi David Zeller of blessed memory. And he was so amazing. Did you know him, Aura?
I did not know him, no.
Oh my God. So he had a synagogue in Israel called Yakar, not Ikar, but
Okay.
Yakar. He was like Buddhist, Jewish, therapist, rabbi,
Love
all
it.
these things.
Perfect.
And he wrote the word on the board for the Sabbath, which is Shabbat. And he said, does anyone know what this word means? And I'm just like listening to him. And he said, we know the meaning of a word from the first time it's used in the Torah. And the first time this word is used is actually when Abraham is sitting at the foot of the tent on his third day after the circumcision, and the angels appear. And so he says, what does it mean? What does the word Shabbat means? He says, it means to meditate. And when we sit in that kind of stillness, it's the kind of place where we sit with the divine. And every one of us, he said, when we sit in that way, God will appear to you immediately. That is your lifeline. And so I was like, what? That's my religion? That's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard in my life. And then we were supposed to leave. So we leave, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go back to Israel. And long story short, a few months later, I'm in college at Florida State. My sister, we didn't have cell phones at the time. We didn't have GPS at the time. We didn't have a lot of easy way to travel.
Technology.
She was living in New York. She's in Orlando for a Shabbaton. She calls me, leaves me a message on my answering machine, and she says, hey, I wound up last minute coming to Orlando. I'm going to leave you this address. If you could drive down here, I'm going to be off the phone and technology for a weekend. But if you can come on a Sunday, and I'm thinking, this is the most difficult to get to place. She left me this message. I'm scribbling down an address. It's a 4-hour drive. I'm like, I'll do it. So I drive 4 hours on Sunday. Meanwhile, trying to call her Saturday, she didn't answer the phone. I didn't quite know why she wasn't answering, but also it was like a phone in this office at this retreat center, but nobody was answering. So I'm just driving there on Sunday, and I finally get to this retreat center, and no one's there. And it looks like a scene in a movie where something beautiful has happened, and there's a volleyball tent swinging in the wind, but nobody's there. And I just break into tears, like, I drove all this way and no one's here. So this man starts walking towards me, and he's holding a basketball. So he didn't look scary. He's holding a basketball. And he goes, are you Barbara Heller's sister? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, oh man, she just left for the airport. And I start crying. And he goes, hang on a minute. He goes, you know what's interesting? He goes, you're crying probably because you thought you came to see her and you missed her. I said, yeah. And I drove 4 hours and I got lost, and I don't have a GPS. We didn't have that then. I didn't say that, but I'm saying I got lost. And he said, maybe God loves you so much that he made it so that you wouldn't meet her here because you didn't come to meet her. Maybe you came to meet me. And I'm like, is he hitting on me? What's that? He was not hitting on me.
You're like, what's the intention here?
What's happening? Is this a rom-com? And then he goes, I'll tell you why I say this. He goes, I'm so tired. We went through this whole Shabbaton. I was supposed to take a nap. My wife was like, you need sleep, go take a nap. And he said, right before your sister left, she came to me crying and said, you have to meet my sister. And one day you have to talk to her. And she was so moved by this weekend. He goes, and something told me to get up, supposed to take a nap, and there you are. Long story short, he invites me to Jerusalem. He tells me, come, I'll give you a scholarship. I'll find someone to pay for your flight. I go to Israel. I thought I was going to be there for the summer. And I lived with Rabbi Aaron and his 7 children and his amazing wife. And I stayed there for 3 years.
What? How do I not know this
that.
story? I don't know this story, Cathy. This is crazy. So that was Rabbi Aaron. That's how you guys met?
So I lived in the old city of Jerusalem for 3 years.
In his
so
house.
I know the whole, he had a cute little apartment above Israelite, which is on Miskavladat, which overlooks the Kotel.
Right.
There's one little room with a bed. So, but yes, it was like either like his house, some Shabbases, that apartment. Then I met Rav Benji Levine. I stayed with them, with their children in Harnof. I stayed with the holiest people, Aura.
Wow.
And I lived for 3 years, and I became so in love with God. I learned, it was like somebody took the software program that was inside of me and completely recoded it. And when I left Israel, I was completely at peace, like blissed out of my mind. I knew the map. I knew what the universe was about. And I was inspired to go to Los Angeles, and Rabbi Aaron said, go, let's go. And but we've stayed very close.
Yes.
Yeah, I learned Torah for 3 years in Israel with the most incredible Rebbeim, Rabbi Benji Levine, Rabbi David Aaron. I took classes, studied at Nishmat for a year of that 3 years. which
Wow.
was amazing with
This
Rebede
is
Pinkin. And
okay, hold on. This is incredible. And I can't believe we've never had this conversation, but we were also really busy with babies. So it's, who knows? This is incredible. So you study with these really incredible teachers who Kabbalah, Judaism, and who taught you all this stuff. And then you come to LA, and I assume you came to LA to be a singer, right?
wanted to write music.
You wanted to write
Exactly.
music.
Wait, I had the same reaction when Joe told me that he studied at the Gush, and I was like, you went to Gush? That's the coolest Hesder yeshiva you can go
Yeah.
to. Anyway, and I'm like, you're a giant. Like in all of these, he's very modest, but the school where he studied is like the school. And I
Yeah.
just,
I feel like
just
you got the same thing. Like you weren't in a school, but you were studying with these top
the
knowledgeable
best,
rabbis. And so
the
what an
best.
incredible way to come start your career in LA, which is one of the toughest cities, with all of
Yeah.
this strength behind you.
Right. And so that is the thing. Like I wrote in my book, I wrote this word ease because you just said tough,
Yeah.
right? I said that this is a book, it's called Abundant Ever After. And underneath it, the subtitle says Tools for Creating a Life of Prosperity and Ease. So my whole thesis of the book is that life is not meant to be a struggle
Mm,
and there is meant to be ease. And we are taught that it actually is a struggle.
right.
And I'll say it like this: pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional.
Right.
And our soul instructions are invited into situations where there is pain, except that all of it is an invitation for us to reveal more of the light inside of us and inside of the world. And when you know that, it gives purpose to pain.
Right.
And that's not the part of anyone's life that's actually the struggle. The struggle is how tough we make it because we don't have the capacity to receive. And so, what I learned in Israel, what I learned from Rabbi Aaron, and he does say on the cover of his book, Kabbalah, but Rabbi Aaron is a Torah giant. He is a Torah giant. This man has never stepped foot in the Kabbalah Center. Whatever
Right.
Kabbalah he knows is like straight from the tap, from the best Makubals that he could have possibly met over the last 55 years. So it really is just Judaism.
Mm,
And so many rabbis will be like, I don't teach Kabbalah, I teach Judaism. You're teaching Kabbalah. Like it's woven into the fabric, okay? But what I learned from him is the law of reception. Okay. And so what's so interesting is like in the world of manifestation, people talk of the law of attraction. And I remember discussing this with Rabbi Aaron. I would change those words. And I said, okay, so what are the words? He said, it's not the law of attraction. That means that there is something over there that you are attracting over here. He said, in Kabbalah, it's much more immediate. It's all in escrow. Your job is just to receive what's already here. So it's the law of reception. The word Kabbalah means to receive. Lekabel means to receive. So what does it mean to be a receiver? It means that if you have a radio, this is his analogy. If you have a radio and you turn on the radio, you're going to hear music. First of all, where was the music before you turned on the radio? Hidden in plain sight. Now, once you turn the radio on, you can listen to jazz music, classical music, pop music. So then there's a broadcast. There's music playing. But the music that's playing is determined by where the radio is tuned. So we are a receiver, we are a radio, and where you are tuned is what you will experience. So if you're tuned to the station of love and wholeness and equanimity and compassion and creativity, your whole day you're going to come back and say, oh my God, I met the most amazing people. I had this interesting experience, but even that turned to wisdom. And there was just unbelievable synchronicities and it was mystical and beautiful. But if you're tuned to the station of lack, you're going to hear static all day long. You're just not going to tune in, right? Oh, this person didn't like me. Oh, I missed the flight. Oh, you missed the flight. Only so you could. It's all about
it
what you're
spirals.
tuned to. But what's even deeper than that is that the idea of manifestation, often the way people are thinking of it, is what can they manifest around them? What career, what
Right.
amount of money? Like people are often thinking about that. But the thing about the radio analogy that's so powerful is that the ultimate thing that you want to manifest, that your soul deeply desires, is to understand that you're the music. Meaning to say that when you are tuned to your soul, And as Rabbi Aaron says, you're a masterpiece, you're a piece of the master, you're someone because you're some of the one. Then in your greatest humility and in your greatest service to the world and to your soul, you get to be a radio for God. You get to be a vehicle for God, for the music of God to play through you, because your soul becomes a song. And then the most amazing thing happens, which is wherever you go in the world, you light up people around you because they hear the music coming from you. And so we think that what we want to manifest is like that house and that thing. You really don't. That's so boring. You have way bigger dreams. What you want to manifest is the lightness of your own being. What you want to manifest is this feeling that you're in flow state. What you want to manifest is knowing that when you go to sleep at night, just your very vibe turned on everyone around you, and everybody around you all of a sudden felt like they could dance a little more with their own soul, and felt that they could see further, and felt like there was more love in the room and love in the world, and you became the music. That's what we're all after. The opposite of depression, and I studied this so many times looking for the answer to this question because my mom was so deeply depressed. The opposite of depression is not happiness. It is not. If you look at any single study, the opposite of depression is purpose. When you realize that what you're after manifesting is not something external, because the idea of thinking that you're here to manifest stocked piles of things, you will always feel in lack. What you want to manifest is the power within you. What you want to manifest is fully feeling the capacity of how much love and energy flows through you when you are tapped in and turned on. When I was living in Jerusalem, eating like 3 pitas and hummus for lunch and never going to the mall, never seeing a movie. First of all, watching movies in Israel sucks.
Yeah.
It's middle of the movie. Hafsaka, bavakasha. You're like, what? The weirdest place to stop a movie. Why is everyone talking? Anyway,
We have a break.
that's the one thing I would fix. I'm like, could you watch
Israel.
I don't need a break at 38 minutes to watch you smoke cigarettes. Anyways, that was the richest, most incredible time in my life. And there was nothing external happening. What was happening was my soul was waking up. I was high on what was happening within me and swooning over sentences of the Tzfat Emet. That is what we all want at any moment. It's a feeling, right? Why does somebody want $11 million? How it will make you feel. Why would you wait for $11 million when you can feel that way right now?
Okay.
However, here's what I will say about manifestation in the external world.
And then I'm going to pause you for some question interjection. Yeah.
What I want to say is that David HaMelech was one of the most spiritual people that has ever lived through history. He wrote these Psalms. His heart was able to go so deep in his connection to God, and he was so material. He had so much material wealth. Okay. Judaism is a non-dualistic religion. That is shtuyot for us. We don't believe that in order to be ascended, you shouldn't have physicality in your life. That is not Jewish. That is a Buddhist concept. If you're going to have sex, elevate that experience. If you're going to have wine, elevate that wine. If you're going to find Hashem in everything, because Hashem lives in everything. So what I have found to be true, which is wild, is that when we tap into and create the greatest vehicle for the most amount of energy to flow through us, we are so in overflow, we are so magnetic, and our heart is literally electromagnetic. It is an electromagnetic device. And when we are in this kind of energetic center, we become such a portal for energy. And that is when so much material abundance just is drawn right into your life. Because when you need something, you just keep pushing it further and further away, because you cannot create from lack. You can only create from wholeness. So when let's just give you a different example. When you're feeling in love with your life and you go on a date, the guy's going to call you because wholeness is very much what's attractive. When you need to be liked, you're not going to get the job, right? The person who gets the job says, give it to the other person, enjoy your day, have it. Like, wholeness. So when you're feeling abundant already, because you feel this abundance of enjoying your own company and swooning over the 18 shades of green outside, and you're not just saying it, you literally feel rich. And everywhere you go, you're just constantly feeling the richness of the life force beating in your chest. Your energy is so magnetic that money, because you are a match for abundance of all kinds. So material abundance, but also like people will say, I just love your energy. Next thing you know, you're introduced to this person. Next thing you have another creative opportunity. It won't stop. It'll just all be there because you're creating it. You're like 3D printing it through the energy that is so potent within you. It 3D prints it around you in the physical form.
Okay. First of all, thank you for all of that. Super powerful, makes so much sense, and is very aligned, especially that feeling that you're describing with bitachon, which is in trust, right? So all the rebbitzins I've talked to, that's their thing, bitachon. And I've actually asked them about manifestation, and most of them have shied away from it because they're like, that's not what we teach. It's not what we know. Some of them, like you, was like, I don't know where it lands in Jewish life, but that feeling you're describing is the same feeling they're describing about being in trust, trusting Hashem, and coming to that place of when you want that $11 million, what is it giving you? It's giving you peace of heart. It's giving you safety. It's giving you relaxation. So to be able to give that all over to God is really that feeling that you're going after. That's the feeling you're trying to bring in. So my question to you is, what if someone is really struggling with finances and money for years? They don't have the background to be like, oh, this one time I was in abundant flow. And how do you, if you need that feeling to be the receiver, to be the attractor, how do you switch your channel if you don't know how? If you haven't done it before?
So first of all, I want to just take this in two parts. First of all, what I have found is that people are completely unconscious of it typically, but there is a huge block to having money for most people. And they're like, I want money, but I don't have it. You don't have it because you're not willing to allow it in. And when you start to break it down, it's real. And I'll share more about what I mean.
Yeah.
So often you'll meet somebody who says, I really want to be in a relationship, but now I'm 41 and I'm still single. Now I'm 48 and I'm still single. And it's like, I'm on all the apps. I've met with this shotgun. I've tried all these things. And there is a way in which very often, if you peel back the layers, relationships equal pain for this person. There is a lot going on that keeps this person from being willing to truly receive that intimacy, that emotional, physical intimacy. It's the same thing with money. Okay. So very often I meet people and they don't realize it, but they have a deep amount of judgment for people who have money. They have a lot of really interesting thoughts around money and what it does to people. And it's very overt in our culture. Since Shakespeare, there is a villainizing of people with money, and there is a glorification of people without money, which is really interesting and really disturbing, because there are jail cells that are filled with people who have a lot of money, and there are plenty of jails filled with people who have no money. And the Torah says that money is like rain falling on a garden. It's an activator. So if you are weeds, and the Torah says if rain falls on weeds grow, if rain falls on roses grow. So if you are a person who has integrity and you are blessed with a resource, you'll be a steward for more good because you are already in integrity. So you will fund an incredible project. You'll donate a hospital. You'll donate a theater, whatever it is. Also, just having money before you even steward the money, you just made other people rich. When you have money, if you don't put it under your mattress and you put it into a bank, on impact immediately. It will fund other people's business loans or college loans or mortgages instantaneously because money is circular. So you don't serve anyone by not having or spending money. And money, this is what's also interesting. People will have this thing around money when money has no value in and of itself. It's just paper. It has no value. Money needs us because we give money value based on what we choose to spend it on. We then exchange this thing with no value and give it value by buying an acupuncture session. Wow, that money just had a lot of value. Oh, we take it and we send money to soldiers. Oh my God, that money just had a lot of value. Money has no value. Money needs us. We don't need money. When you really get deep in this, I've yet to meet a person who's struggling with money who doesn't have a good relationship with money in terms of their issues. Like you cannot have more of something that you have a bad relationship with. It's the same thing with food. People will spend their whole life on this diet, off this diet. It's like at the end of the day, their relationship with food needs to be, you need to get to the core of it. It's not the diet, right? It's what's underneath food, how charged it is for you, what you're really actually equating food with. It's just food.
Wow.
Like it's food, right? So people put money on this pedestal and they're like, God, that's just the hardest thing. That's the thing. It's like money is so boring, actually. It's not a big deal. So I've always had a lot of mazal around money because I'm not that interested in it.
I was going to say, did you always feel this way?
I've been
Since
so
Israel, like even when you were trying to get songs out there before, was your feeling around money still like this?
One of the reasons I teach money as part of what I teach is because I think people should teach the thing that they have results in. And no matter what I've done, I've had tons of money in it because of exactly what I'm saying. I have always felt so rich. Like when you and I first met, every apartment I lived in, I was like, oh my God, look at this apartment. Like the apartment we lived in on Holt above David's house, I was like, oh my God, this is a
king.
I freaking love this. There's a stained glass thing. Like I've never been the person. I've never had a vision board. I've never written down the amount of money I want to make. I've never thought about money. I'm always like, oh my God, I'm so rich. And my husband, God bless him, has also always felt so rich because he came from nothing. I came from nothing. We couldn't even pay the electric bill. To me, the richness was, oh my God, I feel so alive today. I'm so rich. And I grew up so uncomfortable because we didn't have money that I wasn't expecting money to be the thing that made me comfortable. It was like meaning makes me comfortable, connection makes me feel rich. So then because I don't need it and not thinking about it, it just keeps coming in because I don't, it's like with food. People are like, I don't get it. You've never struggled with food. I'm like, food is another thing I don't really care about. I drink a coffee or I eat a bagel. I don't eat the second half because I'm not shaming myself for it or not shaming. And it doesn't take up space for me. People who it takes up space, they gain weight, they lose weight. You know what I'm saying? It's not a struggle. I don't have that struggle with alcohol either. It's drink a glass of wine. Like, that feels fun. Forget about it for 3
getting
weeks.
back to someone who does, this is fascinating and a lot of it I haven't heard, and this is so wonderful and thank you so much. But getting back to someone who does, and what you're saying makes sense, right? Like someone who struggles with it, who it takes up so much space, they have a bad relationship with it. So how do you switch that relationship?
Okay, so part of it is when money is just something lovely, which it is to me. It's like flowers are lovely, they're lovely, water is lovely, money is lovely. It's all beautiful. Like I'm available for all of it. Great. And I'm also not holding on that I need it. What you need to realize is you have to be available. Like, oh, thank you so much. What I see is most people, they're like, I really want money. And then you go to lunch with them and you offer to pay. And they're like, oh my God, no, you don't have to pay. Oh my God, no, seriously. You can receive your friend buying you the coffee, right? As opposed to saying, thank you so much. Or somebody holds the door for you. Thank you so much. Let me tell you this. When I first moved to LA, I had a record deal for 10 minutes at Interscope, and I had a record deal for 3 months at Atlantic Records. And then I got dropped. So I pulled off being dropped by 2 labels, which was fascinating. And then a friend of mine said to me, you should work in real estate because that's how people make a lot of money. And I was like, okay, great. So I'm sitting in line at the Cheesecake Factory in Brentwood, reading a book on real estate. Standing next to me is a guy with a red Kabbalah bracelet, Italian guy. It's so funny because I knew he went to the Kabbalah Center, but I never put it together until recently that that must have been part of why he hired me, because the conversation was so mystical.
Oh, that's so funny.
I like only get it now, of course. Anyway, he owned $1 billion in shopping centers. He turns to me and he's like, this is important. This is about the money. So he turns to me and, you're reading a book on real estate? I'm 25 or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, my career is going down the drain. So I got to switch to something else. We start talking. He's like, you have such a good personality. Why don't you come work for me? I'm like, great. I know nothing about this. I go work for this guy, lovely guy, Italian, Catholic, into Kabbalah, into Reiki, really interesting. What do we do all day? He goes, Kath, get your shoes on. We're going to Mountain Gate Golf Course. We're going to Lakers game. And what do I notice? All the money he makes is through having fun. All he's doing is hanging out with people and having a blast. And he's got good stuff to say. And he's get the guy a drink. And he's talking about energy. And he's talking about mysticism. And he's just playing and he's just hanging out. And it's all people. And then at the very end of the golf game, he goes, hey, you want in on that investment? Like 5 minutes. And the guy goes, yeah, send it over. And I realized the whole day was spent enjoying, just talk about the opposite of struggle. Ease, relationships, play, connect. Oh yeah, here's the offer, done. So when I left his office, a few things had happened. And then I'm going to get to how I met your husband and why I started making money with music. This is huge, okay? Because I realized money is everywhere. Tons of it, right? When I was with him on the golf course, we weren't talking about what I eventually did was selling a song for 100 grand. They were doing deals for $300 million over lunch, okay? And I realized, God, there's so much money. It's just like Wi-Fi. There's so much Wi-Fi. Just get unlimited, right? It's everywhere. It's nothing. And then go underwrite things, which is what this guy used to do. He was a great model for me, but I also I was connecting to that kind of person, right? So anyway, the other thing that happened is he used to say, what do you do on the weekends? And I used to tell him about my Shabbat dinners. And he was like, oh my God, that's so cool, whatever. And on a Sunday, you got to nourish yourself, because when you come to work, everything you're giving is energetic. It's an energetic transaction, and you got to be nourished. So that's when I started doing more meditation. And then I would go to the Peninsula Hotel Spa and I would spend $250 on a massage. And I would sit there the whole day and feel the blanket and take those like rolled ice towels with the eucalyptus and smell them on my face. And what was I doing is I was calibrating that I am available for this level of feeling ease and joy and the money and the harp playing in the lobby and hanging out with him. And it was like, so when I quit that job, I was like, I'm quitting. He goes, you're quitting? What do you mean? I'm like, I'm quitting. He's like, all right, go for it. And so I quit the job, and I realized that I had been cold calling all of these investors so I could cold call anybody. So I started cold calling music supervisors. I started cold calling all these ad agencies.
Right.
And
to get your music placed.
And what did I do? I didn't say a word about myself. I just asked questions. What's up? What story are you telling? What are you working on? Let me take you to lunch. So I made relationships with people. I created relationships. I had a blast. I made connections. I enjoyed people. And then I said, what do you need? Great, I've got that. Let me get that for you. It was so easy to just be present. I didn't have to pitch. I didn't have to force. I didn't have to talk about myself. And then it was easy to be like, of course, what is the song worth? What do you want it to be worth? They're like, the budget's 90 grand. I'm like, great, it's 95 grand. And I would just receive the money. And I started making all this money in an industry where no one made money. And actually, the very first person who I sat down with alone and handed all my contacts to was your husband, such a mensch. And he was like, can you tell me how to do this? I'm like, you can totally do this for yourself. He's like, you should do it for me. I was like, no, you can do this. Here's the list of everybody that I know. And I don't know if you know that, like I introduced them to, I think I invited him to a billboard thing and introduced them to Secret Road, and it doesn't matter. I'll introduce each other, all these things, but it was so easy. They're so talented.
It's so interesting that it was also easy for you. It's funny because I'm thinking about that time, right? And like when we hung out and did Shabbases together and went park dates together and kids together, Cathy, and you guys can all hear it and see it because your energy is so strong and beautiful and light. Like the way you talk about every apartment that you lived in, no matter what, as a Kathy walked around as like life was the greatest thing and the day was the greatest day and the moment
Was.
was the like you've always been like that. And it makes, in hindsight, it makes so much sense that there was no qualms. And for most people, it is like cold calling secret road or music
Yeah.
places or commercials and being like, most people are need to get in their head to be like, oh my God, what am I going to say? And how am I going to say it? And what am I going to do? And for you, it's just, we're just hanging, we're just talking, we're just having conversation.
Yeah, because I think that the greatest blessing you can give someone is just good energy in their day. And so to me, it's, I don't have an agenda. I don't care if you license my music or not, but I could add to your day. And the truth is, there's just so much more I could say about that. But yeah, I think my business is not the outcome. God's business is the outcome, but my business is showing up and being available for whatever is the next assignment. And what I will say about manifestation in Judaism is,
Yeah, I want to get back to that original question.
what's different about Buddhism and Judaism, there's a lot of things, and there's some things that are similar, but one of the things that's different is ratzon. The idea in Buddhism is you shouldn't desire anything. Ratzon
Mm.
means desire. Not that you need to know that, but if your audience...
I'm going to ask you to translate for anyone listening.
Yeah. So when you are a pure Buddhist person, it's like the idea is not to have any desire at all. Don't have any craving, because desire equals suffering. Okay. That's so not Jewish. That is so not Jewish. Why? Because God, in God's infinite wisdom, created us with ratzon. In fact, one of my greatest teachers used to say, you're supposed to wake up like a lion every morning with such ratzon, like you have such desire. That is, ooh, that's juicy. Now, what does that mean? It means that there's two kinds of desires, right? There's the desire of the ego, your Yartzait, which is, I desire more validation. I want a best-selling book. And then that feels stressful and you feel a little bit in fight or flight and you feel like I need this to happen, because that's not coming from your soul. That's coming from the part of you that feels, in order to feel powerful, the world has to tell you you're powerful or you need a big Range Rover outside or whatever. But then there's the ratzon of your soul, which says, if you were to go to Trader Joe's or whatever grocery store and you walk out with a little plant, they sell these little plants in the front of the store, right? And it comes in a little pot. The desire that's born into the seed of that plant is that it's meant to outgrow that pot. That's healthy. That's how it's designed. It would be unhealthy to say, no, the fact that you desire to outgrow this pot is coming from your heart. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That seed, in its highest intention, is meant to be taken out of that pot eventually, put into the earth eventually, and eventually it's supposed to sprout and become whatever tree it's supposed to be in its infinite design. So we have within us a code of divine instructions. And throughout our life, here's the thing. It's very clear what it is. It's just, do we honor it or not? Sometimes it feels inconvenient. But very often that desire is saying, make that phone call, write that book, put that podcast out there, enjoy it, have more of the money that you should have so that you be a steward of my money in this world. Like, it's interesting to me how people literally cut themselves off from what is actually the assignment and then make it into, for me to follow that assignment, that would show a lack of humility. It's like, that is actually your job in the world, is to be a vehicle. And all there is God anyway. The only thing that's interesting about Michael Jordan is how Michael Jordan is taking the energy called godliness and moving it through him as the instrument. God's playing the instrument. God is the conductor. So it's all in glorifying the essence of Hashem, right? So intention creates effect. But I do believe that when it comes to manifestation, what I like to say is, okay, I'm aware that my next assignment is to write this book. That feels hard. That feels scary, but I'm doing it. What's not my job is to say it has to be a bestseller. I'm going to equate my sense of self. No, the neshama doesn't get split based on like those kinds of rewards. The neshama only gets its elevation through answering the call of whatever is the next assignment. And sometimes the next assignment is go talk to that woman at the bus stop. That's it. That's your whole point. So we don't know what moves the chess pieces. Only Hashem knows. But we do often second guess ourselves. Who am I? Imposter syndrome is egocentric. That is not your job. Your job is to be a vehicle for Hashem, which is why when Moshe couldn't speak well and God said that you're not to judge who I choose to be my mouthpiece. And I don't care if it feels inconvenient. You're up. You're being tapped in. Show up. Do it. Not for your sake, for my sake. That is humility. So I think a lot of people, this idea of trust is one thing. It means surrender the outcome. But you have to use your bechira, your free will, to act upon what you are being called to do. And so often I meet people who have such imposter syndrome. And it's like, your soul is not an imposter. My grandmother didn't go to school past the 5th grade. She was the wisest person I know.
Right.
The most impressive person is not their resume. It's their love. It's the presence. Anyone who's known me in anything I've ever done, whether it's writing books or podcasts, I'm a C student. I'm a mediocre songwriter. But it doesn't matter. What matters is like so much more. Bob Dylan doesn't even have a good voice.
No.
What makes Bob Dylan amazing is his essence. I used to go in the room with songwriters that were a million times better than me. And they're like, when you're in the room, everyone writes better songs. So that's your contribution. And your voice has all this feeling in it. And that's what it's like. We hold ourselves back as opposed to saying, I'm going to allow something bigger than me to flow through me. And I'm going to be a C student at it. And Hashem is in charge of the results. But yes, when you feel rich all the time and you don't demonize or judge people who have money, I'll just say this one last thing. People come to me and say they want money and they don't have it. And I say, have you ever been on an airplane? They say, yeah. I say, when you walk through first class, do you love those people? They're like, no, I like judge those people. I'm like, that's the problem. You know what I think? Because I sit in first class on every flight. By the way, there's a million things that when you have money, there's no difference. First class is completely different. That is the reason.
You're like, first class is actually different, and that's why I'm on it.
Honestly, because you actually, I mean, for me, I used to have anxiety flying and now I don't.
Flying is so difficult these days that it makes sense first class.
It makes sense. But you know what? I think to myself when I'm in first class, I want to be the person sitting here who's also the kindest person on the plane. Can I pull that off? Of course you can. Meaning to say, so often, this is the last thing I'll say about it. We don't realize that the people who we love very much our whole life have judged people who have money and told us that in order to be really holy, you don't need money, that money will corrupt you. And we want to belong so badly that, like Moana in the cartoon, she wouldn't leave the island. She wouldn't go past the reef because her parents said, this is all you need. Don't go out there. Just stay here. We want to belong to the people who we've always belonged to. And if they have taught us having money makes you less holy in some way or
less humble, less good,
then you will not let yourself have it. And I take total issue with that because I can tell you that I have a lot of very successful friends in my life now, almost a lot of those people. They're the kindest, most generous people. And I'm like, I don't know. And they don't think much about money.
Right.
They just use it to invest in really important things that are changing the world right now and really important. So I'm like, I don't know what all that talk was, but you were dead wrong. It's interesting.
That is interesting. So you didn't get any of that messaging grow up and Lowell because you said you both came from not a lot.
He got the message, which is why it's really hard from him, which is why, you know, his mazal has been that the abundance comes through me.
Through you. So again, so back to that question. Someone who did grow up like this, who's struggling, who's been given this messaging, and I haven't discussed this with the rabbis, but with friends, and I'm so glad this whole messaging thing you brought up because I really believe in it in a lot of ways that it blocks you. But someone who does that, what is the work to turn that around? Is it going to therapy? How do you get rid of those blocks? How do you step into this?
I actually don't like therapy at all. I know that's controversial.
Ooh, controversial.
I'm not interested in therapy. I'm more interested in do energy healing, do Reiki. Like I feel like
somatic healing.
Yeah, because I feel like so often Therapy is talking to you about the old identity and the story and more of the story, and your soul is so much bigger than that story.
Okay, makes sense.
What I tell people,
I meant, by the way, I meant healing, which you
I know
are
what you meant. I totally know what you meant.
doing.
Here's what I tell people. I do this at my retreats and
Because this is your work now. Now you're teaching people how to step into this abundant power.
yeah, in many
So
ways.
I'm sure most of the people that, and this is the question, because I assume most of the people who show up at your retreats have enough money to go to the retreat, right? Your retreats aren't cheap. So they're
And
at a,
online, I do like right now this week we're doing a live event for 7,000 people, which is free, and we
you
do
do.
them every 3 months. And those people have this question for
Okay.
sure.
So go
So
ahead.
what we do with all of these workshops is a lot of different things. But one thing that really is cool is I'll tell people to write a check, take out a piece of paper and draw a check on a piece of paper and write a check to themselves and pick a number. And it's a really interesting exercise. And some people will write $48,000 and some people write 4 million and some people write 2 billion. It's really interesting. And then I say why. And people will say $55,000 felt realistic, or I wrote 2.5 million because that's really all I need to be comfortable. It's just so, and I said, write anything. So it's interesting the way they qualify it.
Right.
Yeah. Then I say, now I want you to close your eyes and I want you to get in touch with your soul. Find the part of you that's really you, who you've been since conception, your essence. That part of you, how much can that part of you give? Is there a limit? Like how many people could you love? How much compassion can you muster? Where does it stop? Where do you say, I'm all out of love. I can't smile at the stranger. Or I've lost. No, it just keeps going. Okay, so the part of you that's you has an infinite capacity to give. You could find compassion again and again. You could find love again and again. There's no day where you would say, oh, I met a loving person, but I don't have room for a new friend. Nope. There's more room. There's more room. There's more room. So the essence of you, your soul, from that place, you can give an infinite amount.
Hmm.
Then I say, so from that part of you, how much can your soul receive? Can it receive this much energy? Oh, no. Oh, it could receive an infinite amount. Why? Because it's a lightning rod. What happens with a lightning rod? Energy just moves right through it. It's like a tuning fork. Energy is vibrating through it. Oh, so the soul is not meant to hold energy. It's meant to move energy. Oh, when we say Hashem Echad, we don't mean there is one God. We mean there is one God who is one. Oh, so we're each a wave in the ocean. Oh, so why would I want less of anything when I am another portal by which the collective gets infused with energy? Oh, so we're each lightning rods. Oh, so some of us have our lightning rod turned on and some of us have our lightning rod turned off. Why would we have the lightning rod turned off? Because we're egos. We haven't yet returned to the soul. Shlomo Carlebach was so soul-led that he would just take all the money, he'd get it and give it away, give it, give away, give it, give away. That's literally, without you even doing, that's what it is doing. Money is coming in through you. The word currency comes from the word current. It means it just keeps moving. The whole illusion is that you're making it about yourself and how much you're worth or how much you can hold, how much you can spend. It's not even about you. It's about what comes into you and then becomes part of the market, part of the world, part of how you move money around and how you now circulate money and how you help other people to make it and to see it and to be a possibility for it. By the time I get done with that exercise, everybody realizes how ridiculous it is that they wrote that number on the check. The number should be infinite. So then the question is on a your nervous system will only let you manifest what you feel safe to receive. So then you have to close your eyes and you have to check in with your literal somatic body and say, it is safe to be abundant. And then see what your body says. Your body's going to say, it feels unsafe, but it is safe because you're nobody, because you're someone, some of the one, you're not a body. You're no body, nowhere, and no time. It's all an illusion. This is all energy. This is all a dance of energy. There's a little bit of physicality, but it's mostly energy. So now you have a whole song and dance about receiving money. What are you doing? You're becoming so physical. You're becoming so much more matter than you are a soul. So yeah, for me, it's like I don't check my bank account. I don't check how many downloads of my podcast. I'm just here to put things in the world
Wow.
and receive things. And I'm not really worrying about or concerned about the other side of it. To me, it's like, how do I feel right now? How much can I give right now? How much can I receive right now? Where am I blocked in giving or receiving? That's my only work. And then the energy just keeps flowing and the money is part of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and very different. Have you ever had a time where you were concerned about money? Like in a real way? Like,
No.
no,
No, because I grew up without it, but I was 14.
but you weren't in charge, so you didn't
So
have to.
I was working because I didn't have money without me working. So I worked at Blockbuster Video and then paid for my own car and had an old beat up Volvo. And then I went to Israel where I was so in love with the moon and the stars and the world that I wasn't thinking about money. And then I moved
Right.
to LA and I was so grateful to
For
be
everything.
living for my dream every day. I felt like the richest person because my mom had not lived for her dream. She'd given it up. And I felt, oh my God, life is in Technicolor. It's just such a freaking
Wow.
joy to be alive. I want to tell you this one thing. I went to college at Florida State in Florida, and Alan Ball, who wrote this movie called American Beauty, he wrote a show
Mm,
called 6 Feet Under. I didn't know who he was at the time, but he came to speak to us because he went to my college. And American Beauty, that movie had already come out. And I remember him saying to me when we were in college, and I was paying for college through work and student loans, and I had no money and whatever. And I remember him saying to us that when he was waking up in his 20s, just living for his dream, he was so broke, but he woke up every day to write his script and he was looking for what was going to be his script. And this friend of his was a musician and this friend of his was an actor and he wanted to be a writer. And one day he was sitting in front of what was the World Trade Center and all these business people looked really serious. They were walking in and out of these buildings. They all had their suits on and their briefcases. And there were these fall leaves that were just dancing in the wind, and they were so beautiful. And he was eating his breakfast, watching these leaves and noticing that nobody else stopped to see the beauty. And that was his idea for American Beauty, which was
mm,
about a perfect street in America where people have all this money and they're miserable, whatever. Meanwhile, there's plenty of people who are miserable, no money, plenty of people who are happy, who have money. But
right.
the point was, when I moved to LA with no money, I was that kid looking at the leaves. I was like, I'm so in love with the fact that this is even what I get to think about all day. It's like all these fun, creative things I want to do. And the people I met were so creative and fun and beautiful. And then I just always felt, oh my God, this is a surprise and delight. This is a surprise and delight. And everything I've done has always just felt like this is such a surprise and delight. When I started the podcast, I just didn't have any expectations that
Mm,
do anything. And now it has 50 million downloads and it makes multiple millions of dollars a year. And
amazing.
I don't even think about it. I just, if anything, it's been a little bit interesting because I want to be such a steward that I wind up, the more resources I have, the more I'm just taking on a lot of events I'm hosting and things I'm involved in. And then I realize that my husband's like, you're like the giving tree. You need to
Step it down a
getting a
bit.
little depleted. It
Right.
becomes, yeah, it becomes interesting. It becomes a big test because a lot of people ask you and you say yes a lot. And then you're not just writing a check, you're doing a lot.
Right. Yeah.
You have 3 kids and you're like, wait,
I need to also be there for them and I need to be there for myself. And you need to find that balance.
so interesting.
That is so interesting. Oh my gosh, Kathy, this is so amazing and so inspiring. And I feel like you really, I just love that you almost remind me of like those mystics that, Rabbi, my mind's going blank. Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs was on a podcast, I believe, with Sam Harris. Do you remember this?
No, but I love that Sam Harris had him on. I gotta
Yeah.
go.
And it's really, one day when you have a minute, it's really a beautiful podcast. And one of the questions Sam Harris asked Rabbi Sachs, who was really wonderful, is what's the difference between humans and mystics? And he says, humans see the physical world and they think, maybe there's a God out there.
Yeah.
And mystics see the godly world and they're like, maybe there's a material world out there. And it almost feels you're at that's where you're at. It sounds like you're one of these mystics who you just really see a godly world. And you're like,
So
maybe there's a material world out there and you see the pain and of people so stuck and you're like, I need to teach them this. And this is why you're doing so much. Because you're like, if I could help, I need one more money. Share. Other people need to get out of this materialistic world that they have this, like the explanation of the writing the money on the check is so visually wonderful because it's something we can all understand. Yeah, you're right. I would have written down, I actually, when you said that, I had a number in my head. And that number came from this, that, whatever. But then when you explained it, it was like, oh, if God is infinite, I am infinite. Like we have
yeah,
to get to
yeah,
this place
yeah.
of just flow. And that's what it is. And so much of it is so controlling. And the stories, the limited beliefs and the stories we were told and that we've taken on. I am very guilty of it as well. And it's just, it's so beautiful. And I actually saw that you're doing these free Zooms. I don't remember why. I tried to get on the last one. Something happened. I have a 2-year-old at home. It doesn't always work out. But I will be posting all your stuff in the show notes. And I think that everyone who has any struggle with this, especially since you're giving this from your heart and for free, should really jump on this opportunity and maybe try to change something for yourself.
Thank you. I brought me full tears when you said that because I felt so, first of all, no one's ever said that to me. And it's such a poetic, gorgeous thing to say. And it really is so right on. I am like, maybe there's a physical world out there somewhere, but I have a friend, Amy Purdy, who snowboards on prosthetic legs.
Wow.
I've seen things in my life that just defy the physical. And even what you just said defies the physical. Like, love is a miracle.
Yeah.
Love is a miracle. Like, when I met Rabbi Aaron and I said to him, do you want me to be like really religious? And do you want me? And he was like, where did I fail that you would ask
Mm,
me that? He goes, I love you unconditionally. That's love by definition is a gift. And God loves you that way. So where did you come up with that? Anyway, I was 21 when I was given the gift of love. That's a miracle. That was a miracle. It saved my life, right?
yeah.
Like anything he taught me about Yaakov or anything he taught, it's gorgeous. And I'm so gifted to even walk around with a few of these concepts. But it's the love, right? You've given me that. Your husband's given me that. Your father gave that to everyone he met. Your mom does that. How is
Kathy, keep bringing up my dad. You're killing me.
how is this a physical world when a human being
Mm,
can shoot that kind of magic in someone's direction just because that is so beyond nature? That is the reason that God says to the angels when they say, don't make human beings. And he says, no, I want you to watch what a human being can be. They'll use their free will, do something so beyond nature, which is to love another person, to, to sacrifice something so another person can have it. Animals don't do that.
yeah.
So I'm saying it's like all this stuff about achievements and whatever, our greatest achievement is our ability to connect, and we can biologically give each other literally an upgrade by you literally just made me healthier. You just gave my cells an infusion of medicine. So how is it a physical world? I don't get it. So to me, it's like master the art of letting yourself be a tuned piano. That is your abundance. And you're right, it's all just flow. And money comes and goes. And anyone who has even a ton of money, like rich people, they watch it come and go and come and go all the time. They're not even fazed by it. Like a few weeks ago with all the tariffs, my husband's like, oh boy, the stuff that we put in the market. And I go, you know how this president rolls. Hold the heck on. It's going to
Right.
be fine. It's going to be like, boop. And I'm like, that's the way it rolls. Like, just let it move. It's meant to move like that. So I'm saying the wealthiest people are just always so unattached to it. And then it
Mm,
just comes back and goes. It's all what you said. It's flow. And how do you let it? How do you get it to flow into you? Is you are no longer a body, you're nobody, you're someone, you're some of the one. And how are you some of the one? Because you are an extension of Hashem, and Hashem is all in flow. That's where and all the best ideas you'll ever get are going to come from flow also. You're not going to control them either. Creativity is divine. It's a divine inspired idea. It doesn't even come from the mind. It says it comes from the field, and there's something in us that picks up what's happening in the field, which is a wild whole research project. They just did this study on monks at Columbia, and they found no brain activity. So where's the wisdom? In the heart. Wisdom isn't even in the mind. It's in the heart. So there's nothing physical about any of this. It's all flow. We have to get into the flow of our own energy, be a receiver, be a lightning rod. And it's all just there. It's all in escrow, trying to come in, trying to flow through you. Oodles of it, all connections, people, opportunities, ways for you to use your gift, and money also.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Cathy.
I love you. I'm so happy you're doing this.
You.
More to come.
More to come.